A number of years ago, the British rabbi Jonathan Sacks wrote an article for the Times of London called "In Tough Times, Seek the Spirit." Though he was addressing a British audience, what he said also applies to us. He writes, "Here is my recommendation for the next few years. While everyone else is thinking about economics and politics, executive salaries, and the future of the euro, do the opposite, even if it's hard. Invest in the spirit. Focus on the mind and the soul. Read, study, enroll in a course of lectures, pray, become a member of a religious organization. Study the Bible or other ancient works of wisdom. Find people not to envy, but to admire. Do not the profitable, but the admirable deed. Live by ideals." Rabbi Sacks says, when material conditions are tough, the best investment we can make is spiritual, in the happiness that we don't buy, but make. Join a religious congregation, and you will find people who care about ideals and are willing to make sacrifices for them. You will make friends on whom you can rely and become part of a community on which you can depend. Study sacred texts, and you will find yourselves transported to a palace of the mind, the ancient but still compelling wisdom of the past. These are powerful sources of inner strength. Stop worrying about wealth and success and think instead of the blessings that surround you, and you will find your life flooded with meaning. You will sleep easier at night and wake full of hope the next morning. You will look out on the world and see God's glory. You will smile at strangers, and they will smile back. You will worry less and find your fears subside as you entrust yourself to God's everlasting arms. You will realize that your life is filled with blessings you had until now taken for granted. You will discover, or perhaps you secretly knew it all along, that happiness has little to do with what you get and everything to do with what you give. You will rush less and savor more. You will stop wasting time doing the things you should never have done in the first place. Rabbi Sacks suggests that we examine our lifestyle and make the appropriate adjustments. He writes, "Eat only when you are hungry, and stop as soon as you are sated, and you will lose weight. Buy only what you need and travel light through life, and you will save much of what you now spend. See the good in people, and you will, without intending to, make them a little better than they were. Praise others, and do not seek their praise. Give to others, and do not seek their thanks, and you will grow in spiritual health. At least once every day, take time to thank God for the privilege of life itself." So writes Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. Our gospel text is about grace. What we have is not one, but two healing stories, one sandwiched inside the other. Both are stories of tragedy and personal hurt. There is the profound fear of a father for his cherished daughter who is seriously ill, even to the point of death. Jairus is a leader of the synagogue, an upright person, a respected member of society. He humbles himself by coming to Jesus and pleading on behalf of his daughter. Jesus agrees to help and sets out with Jairus to his home. And then the story is interrupted. There is an unnamed woman who has suffered for 12 years from hemorrhages. She has been to the doctors. She has spent all the money she had. She is poor. She's tried everything, and still there is no relief. She is unclean, marginalized, and vulnerable because of her condition. And she remains anonymous throughout the story. We do not know her name. But there is something about Jesus that attracted people to him relentlessly. They came with an expectation of healing, an expectation of grace. On his way to help Jairus, the upright leader of the synagogue, Jesus stops and responds to the importunity of this unnamed woman with a flow of blood. As he is passing through a large crowd, she reaches out to touch the hem of his garment. Her touch makes her well because she knows the source of healing power. Jesus addresses her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." And then the story concludes with a dramatic complication. We are told that Jairus' daughter has died. The implication is that Jesus failed to get there fast enough because the hemorrhaging woman had delayed him. Jesus ignores the accusation of neglect. Instead, he calls for faith. Do not fear, only believe. He takes the girl by the hand and brings her back to life. Grace has been extended to a woman at the bottom of the socioeconomic scale and to a family of privilege. The spiritual reality of God's grace was a lesson learned by the Hebrew children wandering in the desert after they had escaped enslavement in Egypt. God caused manna, the bread of heaven, to appear each morning. All they had to do was gather it up. But they had to learn to trust in that grace day by day. It was their daily bread. And the Apostle Paul reminds us, the one who had much did not have too much, and the one who had little did not have too little. Daily bread, enough for everyone, God's economics. Amen. And thanks be to God who makes it so.